Welcome to Getting to the Other Side, helping couples to navigate the road of recovery. I'm Eddie Capparucci, and this program is designed to help those who are struggling with sex addiction, as well as their partners who are dealing with betrayal, help them navigate the road to recovery and bring them to a place that offers healing, forgiveness, and hope for a new beginning. So good to have you folks back again. And what we're going to be talking today about is what is the role of the people who've been betrayed. There's a lot of stuff that's been out there about, the folks who betrayed and what they've done and what they need to do. We understand that person who's gone through a sexual addiction or pornography addiction, there's a lot of work that they have to do in order to, get themselves in a place where they have this structure and discipline, and they're in a place where they become more safe. Today, I want to talk about those who've been betrayed and what is it, their role in all of this. And we're going to start off with, this is a subject that, those who are betrayed, at least in my experience, aren't really thrilled to talk about. Because when I say to them, hey, you know what, you have your own recovery work. And, sometimes they look at me like I have, three eyes. It's like recovery work. Why do I have any kind of recovery work? I've done nothing wrong here. And you know what? Fully understand. They are absolutely right. They've been the victims of this. They have done nothing wrong. Their world has been shattered by someone. But yet, recovery work, whether it be through counseling, group, journaling, it's all about being able to have a process to grieve, to be able to walk through all of the emotions that you're feeling. And there's so many different emotions that you're going through, and you flop back and forth between them. And sometimes, I hear it very often, the people who've been betrayed say, I feel like I'm losing my mind. I feel like I'm going crazy. And that's not what's happening. What's happening is you've been traumatized. You're suffering and dealing with trauma. And trauma requires recovery work. And the way we deal with trauma, and I think I've mentioned this before in other past webinars that we've done, is about talk. The more and more you can talk about it, the more and more it becomes desensitized for you. The problem is nobody likes to grieve. We hate grieving. I mean, who wants to sit there with those horrible emotions, feeling numbed and then feeling angry and feeling, trying to bargain. Nobody wants to deal with that. And again, we understand that. But it's important, if you want to move forward, you need to be able to grieve. And one of the reasons why this is important is because, what I've seen very often is the person who's done the betraying, they're doing all their work, they're moving forward. And within, 5 or 6 months, they're like, they found this renewed sense of hope that, you know what, I can get through this. I can manage this. I can actually have my life back. And they're so excited about what they're learning about themselves and their addiction. And they're going to the person they betrayed and said, hey, look at me. Look at me. I feel great. I feel like I still got more work to do, but I feel like I'm on the right path. And the person who's been betrayed is like, well, that's really great. And I'm sitting here still bleeding to death, because the recovery process sometimes is even longer for those who've been betrayed. And that's why it's important, so you can walk step by step with the person who has hurt you. Again, you're still going to be behind them because it's going to take you longer to recover. But if you're not, you're sitting back here and they're moving up here, what happens? You wind up stuck. And in being stuck in there, and you're still dealing with all these nasty emotions that you're feeling, and you now feel like I'm in a place that I'm never going to move from. And rightfully so, that's what it feels like. I had a client, it was a woman who was betrayed, For 3 years, she struggled because she really wouldn't do the work. Even seeing me, she would come in maybe for a few weeks, and then I wouldn't see her for 2, 3 months. And then she'd call me and saying, I need to get in there. And she'd come back for a couple more weeks, and then she'd run off again. She didn't like sitting on that couch and having to go through those emotions with me. But it was something that she needed. And finally, toward the at the end of the 3rd year, she came in one day and she called me. I hadn't seen her in about 5 months. And she called and said, you know what? I'm just so tired. I'm tired of feeling like this. And I can't do this anymore. I said, well, then you know what? Maybe if you're really ready to do the work, I know I can help you. And she did. And she came in and she did her work. And over a period of time, she was able to get unstuck and move forward. And I'm really happy to say that she's doing very, very well today. So number one on the role of the betrayal, of those who've been betrayed, is do your recovery work. Number two, don't re-traumatize yourself. This is something we see so often because, and part of that is the fact that you're just in shock because you can't believe what has happened. You can't believe that this person who you thought was protecting you and loving you, encouraging you, was always going to be there beside you, that they have hurt you the way they have. And so therefore, what you do is you keep going back to the things that, you find. For example, one client whose husband was on a dating site and meeting different women. And she got on that dating site, set up a whole false account because what she was trying to do was track down some of the women that he, had been with. But also, as she was doing that, she was finding out more and more about this whole dark world of people who, are married, but yet they're on dating site, which again continued to traumatize her because she was like, this is the way people act. She never realized the extent of what this issue could look like. And that made her even more and more depressed. A lot of times you find items from those who betrayed you. Maybe you find photos on their phone or emails or letters. But what happens is you keep going back to those, keep looking at the photos, you keep rereading the emails, you keep rereading the letters over and over again. It's like you're just hoping you're going to find some clues so that you can figure out, how did this all happen to me? You're not going to find clues in there. All you're going to find is continuous heartbreak. You're going to find yourself again re-traumatizing yourself. You're going to find yourself with more mental and emotional anguish. My wife, who does work with women who have been betrayed, she has a line that she tells them at a certain point. She says, stop picking through the garbage. There's nothing in that garbage that's going to be good for you. Okay, well, you know what the garbage looks like. We've been there, and I'm not saying bury your head in the sand, and not, you don't want to find out what details are. Because again, you do need to know, and that's part of what formal disclosures are about. But once you know that, you need to stop going back through it. Again, I had another client who he was seeing escorts, and what he did was, with seeing the escort, he'd go in and write reviews about them. And his partner was making him go back and sit there and reread those reviews to her over and over again, until we finally got her to the point where we were like, you know what is this? What benefit are you gaining from this? And she got to the point where she said, you know what, I'm not getting anything from it. Actually, I'm just setting myself back more. So be cautious about re-traumatizing yourself. You've been through enough trauma already. So number three, watch your anger. And again, I understand it's a very difficult time. With trauma comes very emotionally based thinking. And therefore, not always thinking rationally during these difficult times that you're facing. But the anger is about protecting yourself. And that's what that's about. Revenge is about destroying and inflicting pain. And I know many of you, you want the person who's hurt you to feel the intensity and the level of the pain that you have experienced. Because you know what? Frankly, unless they've been through what you've been through, they don't know what the intensity of that pain is. We just can't be there in that level of it. Yeah, they can see some of it, but they can't feel the intensity of it. And you want them to feel that intensity. And therefore you become like more on a seek and destroy mission with people. And once again, do not misread me. I'm not saying don't be angry. What I'm saying is watch your anger. Watch what you do with that anger. Anger is a natural response to this whole process. Okay? Revenge is not natural and it's not rational for all of it. It sounds very fulfilling to sit there and want to remain angry. Basically, all it really does is slows down the healing process. It just, again, is another thing that just keeps you very stuck in this state where it looks like there's no moving forward. You're like locked in time. And you feel that for a period, no matter what goes on. But you don't have to feel that forever. But sometimes that's what it seems like. So therefore, we need to watch that. But there's also another aspect of it. And that is that when you start to get really angry and it moves to more serious consequences, especially for people who become, when things become physical. We've had numerous clients that have reached out and struck the mate who's hurt them. In some cases, it doesn't lead to much of anything except, the person who's been hit saying, I just don't want that to happen again. But we also have had clients, including there was one who, not only just hit her husband, and I think I shared this back in one of the first podcasts, but took her nails and dug them into his face. And he started bleeding, and she wound up going to jail. And with that, even though she was in jail for, I think, overnight, but with that came a lot of other things that had to happen. There were classes, anger management classes she needed to take. There was all this time in the court system and at her lawyer's office. And again, you think about it, it's like, you know what? Why am I here? How in the world did I get here? That I'm sitting in jail right now, or I'm in a courtroom, or I'm sitting in an anger management class. I never had anger issues before, right? Because you know what? You're not really an angry person. Right now, you're just traumatized. And with that comes a whole new host of emotions and behaviors that you've never engaged in before. And that's why it's really important as the anger is building up to make sure that you can somewhat maintain it. I tell the people who've been betrayed all the time, I go, you got a barrel of rocks. And you know what? You can take those rocks and you can throw them, but those rocks better be verbal rocks. And even there, you need to be a bit cautious of how deep you're going to go in trying to cut. It kind of goes back to what we were saying before about the anger. It may seem really, enjoyable to, lash out at them. Let them see the pain you're feeling. But in the end, it doesn't do anything to try to fix the whole situation, which leads us to the next point, number 4. Part of your role here is determine what's your goal. What do you want to accomplish moving forward here? I mean, are you sitting here saying, oh, I want to leave? Well, okay, I understand that. But at the beginning of this process, rushing into a decision is not a very healthy thing to do, because especially when we're traumatized. Therefore, our thinking is more emotionally based than it is cognitively based. So therefore, you want to slow that process down and not jump into it. But a time will come when you will be able to make that decision. Or you seeing your partner doing the work they need to do to manage their addiction. Or maybe you're not seeing that work. Have there been more betrayals since you discovered this? You know, is it too much water under the bridge because it's not just the betrayals, but there's other things. There's anger, or there's maybe alcohol issues, whatever it may be, that, you say, I just can't do this. And again, that's fine, but not to make that decision immediately. Trauma is not the time to be making major decisions. So, but if you also get to the point where you say, you know what, I do want to stay, I want to work this out, then you need to understand that the goal should be forgiveness. We see way too often people who are in this process for 18 months plus, and, the guy's been doing his work, she's been doing her work, or vice versa. But yet, forgiveness is not coming anywhere close to the surface. And it's like they hold back. You hold back because you feel like if I go and I give this, then I have to be all the way in again. I can understand that. But if you're going to stay, at some point, you need to go back in. But as you go back in with boundaries. You come up with the boundary. What is it that you want? What do you need that will make you feel safe moving forward? And hopefully, with a good counselor, or even, in some reading, there's some really good books that are out there, you can develop those boundaries that are needed to be able to take this relationship to a point where you can feel safer about stepping and moving closer to your spouse. And then finally, the last part of the role that you have is being able to deal with if you have children or perhaps other family members, such as parents or your siblings. What do you tell them? What do you tell? Now, I don't think there's a very clear-cut answer to all of this. I think as far as the kids are concerned, what you're going to talk about is along the lines of, hey, you know what? Mom and dad are just having a very difficult time right now. And we're just going to need, it has nothing to do with you. We love you. We're just trying to sort things out. But you may see that we're not as close to each other as we have been. You don't want to give details. You don't want to be blaming people. But I'll say this. The person who has betrayed, I don't think it's a bad idea for you to say, hey, you know what? I hurt your mom, or I hurt your dad, and we're trying to do something here with that. But other family members, that depends on different circumstances. I know there's a lot of folks who've been betrayed, who run off the minute it happens, and they start telling people. They're telling their parents, they're telling their siblings, they're telling their neighbors, they're telling their friends. And very shortly after, they have major regrets for doing so. Because what happens is then you get a lot of judgment that's coming your way, and you're going to get a lot of opinions of, oh, you know what? Why are you staying? How come you're not doing more in the way of boundaries? And you're going to feel a lot of outside pressure with things like that. Again, I'm not saying you keep this as a secret. You have to make your own determination based on the people who are around you and how safe they are before making any kind of decision on what to tell. Again, it becomes there's no cookie cutter for that. You have to weigh out a lot of options before you start to do that. And maybe, again, that's a good opportunity for you to sit in front of a professional and ask them for what they think their advice is for doing something like that. So anyway, that's the role for those who have been betrayed. And that's what I got for you this week, Tammy.
Great information. I decided, instead of, usually I'm scribbling notes, and I was like, I'm going to type them this time so I can actually read them better. But so you're talking about the client that struggled for 3 years. And, I hear that often. So first of all, let me back up, because someone shared with me, and it might've been you, I lose track of who tells me what now, but recovery for partners, like I've kind of rebelled against that, because it felt like that codependent message of like, you're to blame, you're to do, you're addicted to the addict and all that.
I hope that's not the way it comes
No,
off.
no, I know. But no, not at all. But what someone shared with me, and it changed my thinking on it, was if you have a deep wound, you need to heal from that. And this is a deep wound. And then I was like, okay, so if you take, I'm so used to using recovery in an addiction context, but if you take recovery as I am deeply wounded and I need to heal, and, like if you try to slap a Band-Aid on a deep wound, you get infection, it just doesn't work. So, you really do need to heal from the inside out, and you need to get that support and help. So, with therapy for partners, to me, it feels more like I'm, support and help in the trauma, not we're going to help you, in an addiction way. And that completely changed my frame of when I hear that, I used to get quickly about it, but so I love that.
We're not, if I can interject here, we're never looking at the partner and saying you are the problem.
Yeah, you clearly stated that this is happening to you.
Right.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
They are coming in so that they can process their pain.
Yeah.
As I said, when it comes to trauma, that's the way you process pain. You talk about it. You talk about it. You talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do here in that case. But we are not, because again, even if the partner was not, let's say, ideal in the relationship, they're not responsible.
None of us are.
Right. They're not responsible for their partners acting out. That is that individual and that individual alone. They are the ones who are responsible. No one else.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And thank you for adding on to that too. When you were talking about the client that struggled for 3 years, I get it. It doesn't feel fair that this happened to me and now I have to go deal with all of this. And, so I get that, but I really, I hate when I hear, and sometimes it's resources, like, we have X amount of funds. And so, that person needs more, which one of the things I love about sexandrelationshiphealing.com is there's all these free supportive resources. So you can at least get some support, in trying to manage and heal all of this. So, anyway, so then, the don't re-traumatize yourself, I hear all the time, and I know partners are great detectives, and Dr. Rob has talked about they're looking for safety. They're trying to find that their person is not acting out, but it also, it's like that, that car wreck that you just can't take your eyes off of too, like you feel compelled to do that. It is really challenging. I was talking to somebody recently, and I think this person was the betrayer, and he felt he needed to be there for his partner, but every day they talked about the betrayal, and they were both caught up in that. And I said, this to me feels like a pattern where, it's re-traumatizing, like they were stuck, but he felt like it was, if he didn't do that, then she was going to be mad because he wasn't being there. So it was, like, I really hope that couple has gotten, some professional help to move forward on that. So, you're talking about the anger, and who to tell. And this was just mortifying to me, but, a betrayed partner made her husband stand up in front of the entire church congregation and tell what he had done.
I've
And
heard it.
the righteous indignation, I get it. But you know what happened? The entire family was shunned. They, so it wasn't that, oh, he's bad and gosh, you're such a saint. It was like they all were ostracized from the very community that they needed support from. So I 100% agree with you that find safe people. Telling the kids, yeah, I loved what you said too. And then whether it's adult kids or young kids, don't tell.
Can I bring up another point about telling the kids and why I think that's important? Because the person who betrayed isn't really acting the same way anymore right now. Okay, they are traumatized. They are hurting. They may be somewhat depressed. They may not. They may be withdrawing to the bedroom a lot. And if you got kids, especially those between like 8 and, even 5 and, no, more around 8 to 12 or even 15, they're sitting wondering what happened to mom or dad. Why are they like that? And did we do something? Did we? And plus, if also you get the other side of it, where you get the betrayed person who had to put on the facade all the time. I got to try to make it look like nothing wrong, that I'm so happy and everything's good, and they're dying inside. And that's not fair to them. That does not help in their healing process. So I just want to add that.
Yeah, well, and kids pick up on all those undercurrents. They get it. Like they're reading all those little radar signals. Even so yeah, telling we're struggling right now. It's not you, but no kid, whether they're an adult or young, wants to know about their parents' sex life. And I hate when people, say, I told my kids everything. Those kids, like adult children of alcoholics, are more vulnerable to more stuff if they don't get, great help. So, I think it's always say less. Like think about it. You're going to be sitting around the table at Thanksgiving, and you're going to tell your entire family knows that this person did all of the the nitty gritty on stuff, and they take sides, which is like you said, it isn't really helpful. Like, why are you staying when he's such a jerk? You should just get rid of him. Which that means they're dismissive of all the broken parts that you understand, but you have the history with them. You've got the whatever. So finding supportive help that can look at it, that is less attached to it, like a qualified therapist, a support group, all of that, that can see all the different pieces and not be, like, I had this one not too long ago too, where she called his parents and told him all the details. And I thought, oh, these poor parents. But kids don't want to know about their parents' sex life. Parents don't really want to know about their kids' sex life, So it's really challenging to find the proper boundaries, like you were talking about, to get the support that you need, to have people know that you're struggling without, all the gory details, so to speak. So.
And that's why, again, you need to try to, and I know it's hard because you're in a heightened state of emotional distress, but to slow things down so that you can still make good, healthy choices. And that story that you just shared, experienced it about 3-4 weeks ago. I had new clients who come in, and she did the same thing. Called his parents to do it. I've had clients who called the other person's boss to say, hey, I didn't want to let you know what your employee's been up to when they've been out on the road. It's like, okay, well, guess what? We just got fired.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. So again, and that's not that was not the point. It was trying to cause embarrassment, but instead it causes a totally different cascade of events.
Yeah.
That cause even more problems in a relationship.
You talked about, to stay or go. And I think everybody needs to make that choice for themselves, but from a place, like you said, that isn't a reaction. Kim Buck has talked, who does the Prodependence webinars on Fridays, has talked about if it's a good decision today, it'll be a good decision tomorrow, and hopefully getting some neutral input on that and really weighing the pros and cons of getting rid of the relationship doesn't really get rid of the relationship. So, it really is healing to a place where you can, can make a decision and looking at it long term. I tell people, you're going to co-parent, you're going to co-grandparent, like you got to think about this for the long haul, and it's not fair to the kids or grandkids to go, well, this person can be there for this event and this person there for this event. You got to learn to play in a sandbox. So.
And you'll also find, even in those cases with betrayal, that it's like 80% of people who wind up getting divorced, there's major regret 2-3 years later because they say, you know what, I could have done it differently. Maybe I reacted a little bit too quickly.
Yeah, I thought Kim's, if it's a good decision today, it'll be a good decision tomorrow, I mean,
Absolutely.
not that you should put it off forever, at some point you do have to decide, but just slow it down and get support to help you really look at all aspects of it. So you're making a decision.
But once again, we need to be fair to the people who've been betrayed, because it's difficult to slow things down because everything is racing in their head, a million, seconds, a million times a minute or whatever. And it's not what they're used to.
Yeah.
This is a new landscape for them. They probably have never gone through this. A majority of them haven't, but some have. And so therefore it's like overload. It's overload. And they're just looking for some sort of relief. So therefore it's just, but a lot of times doesn't wind up being relief.
Well, the anger and rage, like for me, anger, I would rather be angry than hurt. And so, because the anger is a power position. So if I'm, and I've learned, and I don't anymore. I've gratefully, gotten tools so I don't have to, but I get it. And the thinking, like you get hit with this, oh my gosh, my entire relationship with this person has been a lie. And, and they feel foolish. It's not their fault, but I understand, they're like, I've been, gaslighted, I've been deceived, all of this, and how many people know, I mean, all of those emotions are, churning up, and it's just really challenging. So to find good support to let you, and melt down or whatever you need to do in that moment without causing more chaos that you have to address later, and some people get caught up in the, my experience is some people get caught up in the, I said I'm going to get a divorce, so I'm going to get divorced no matter what. But like you're saying, then a couple of years later, they're going, oh, I don't know if I needed to do that if I had proper support. So
because in some cases, again, where they don't see other options, they don't see other solutions. The only thing they see is, I need you far away from me as possible.
Yes.
I just can't imagine being close to you. Just get away.
Yeah.
And if you give that time, in most cases, new options start to emerge. And you see, oh, you know what? Maybe there is a chance. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what other counselors go through, but I got to tell you, the folks who come in here, and I'm not tooting our horn at all, but almost 90% of them stay married, and in either in at least a decent or an excellent relationship. Most times better than what they were before, because we're moving them somewhere else.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but again, if you're going to make the snap decision, you're usually going to wind up having a lot of regrets.
So there's a question. Let's turn to this. So, hi, I'm an addict, and I cheated on my wife. How can I increase my empathy? Sometimes my wife says, how would you feel if I cheated on you to communicate to me her intense pain? However, I'm too sick to appreciate that. My addict mind doesn't see her cheating on me as threatening. Thanks. I'm married with kids and sober in SA 18 months, did disclosure, and my wife does work with a therapist who uses the trauma model, and I'm doing EMDR. So great. You're doing a lot of good things. So
yeah, congratulations on that 18 months. That's really good. I hope that continues for you. Empathy is, a pretty difficult thing if you feel like you don't have it. For me, I think the key is curiosity. Be curious about what her pain is like. Ask questions. Describe it to me. What color is it? You know, what does it feel like? If it was a texture, what would it be? What are some of the dreams you're having about it? Get her to start painting word pictures for you that may be able to give you an idea of the intensity of that pain. As I said to you before, unless you've been through a betrayal, I don't think you can understand the full depth of it. But that doesn't mean you can't at least have some idea of what it's about. But even more importantly than fully grasping the pain, it is the idea of you being able to sit with her in her pain, that you're not running away from her. You're not trying to shut it down. You're not trying to minimize it. You're not allowing your emotion, because let's face it, it makes you feel very uncomfortable because she's hurting. You can't let your emotions trump hers. Her emotions have to come first. That's why a lot of times I say to guys, you know, or women, you see this hostility or you see this, you know, sadness, and you know, I don't want you to see that. What I want you to see is their pain. See the pain as much as you can. And then if you can't quite grasp what that is, then ask for deeper explanations for it. Again, get them to paint a word picture for you. Be curious.
Oops.
Hello.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. So in the chat, I put the couples healing workshop. Really consider that, because I think you would find that, you know, I hear the couples that come have healing individually and for their relationship. I think that being curious and being willing to just sit in, it's uncomfortable when somebody's having a reaction and you caused it. You know, that's like, ooh, but
Remember?
you know, I do, you know, I really appreciate that. I think Dr. Robb's book, Out of the Doghouse, is excellent at rebuilding
Great.
trust. And
Great.
that's a lot of it, is like the more you know, put little bricks on the pathway, you know, where she's going to be able to see that you're trustworthy, you know, that helps, that creates that safety, you know, as well. So, you know, hopefully those are helpful.
Remember what we talked about several weeks ago or several episodes before? We talked about the idea that because the problem that a person who has an addiction has, that they don't want to sit with discomfort. They don't want to sit with bad emotion. They don't want to sit with that pain. And isn't it just ironic that they're now going to go through one of the most painful episodes of their entire life? And they're going to be getting hit with all of this, you know, hurt. And they're going to have to learn to be able to sit with it. It's actually an amazing ground for them to be able to train themselves, but it goes against their nature. So therefore, it's like when the pain comes at them, it's like, you know, I'm really tired. I don't want to really talk about it now. I mean, you know, maybe you should talk to your therapist. And no, you have to tell me, sit here with me. Yeah, I'm here with you. I'm here with you.
I think you're right at a certain point. I think really early, they can't be. You know, we talk all the time about you can't be each other's support. 18 months in, yes, you know, should be able to, you know, to be able to, you know, tolerate that, you know. I think one of the things too, you know, I mean, at Seeking Integrity Los Angeles, that's what we're giving these guys, is this foundation on which to build. We're helping break through the shame. We're having them be able to talk about very uncomfortable things. If addiction is the opposite of attachment and intimacy, we want to reconnect people. We want to provide them with the tools so that they can tolerate their emotions, because that's, you know, out the window, but they can tolerate their emotions and others' emotions, and without it being so triggering that they relapse. So, you know, hopefully, you know, that's helpful to those of you joining us. So, other questions, other comments. So I saw in your artwork behind you. So let's talk about your book, just because there's no questions at the moment. So yeah, I was like, oh, I love that. I love the image anyway, but it's the cover of your new book. So why don't you talk about your new book that's coming out in February?
Yes, the new book. Wait a second. Hold on one second.
He's got a draft copy of it.
I do. I have it then.
So for those of you, if you weren't with us for the last couple of months, this was what Eddie has talked about, and it was great information. So
yeah, and you can go back to the
hold it,
last
hold it
two
back up.
episodes.
I'll quit talking now.
Okay, you can go back to the last two episodes that we had, and I walked through all of it, called Going Deeper, how the inner child impacts our sexual addiction. What I've come to understand over the years is that, and my belief is that one of the reasons that people struggle with the addiction is correlated to pain points that we endured as children, adolescents, and teenagers. And a lot of those pain points have been repressed, and we're just not aware of them. They're subconscious. And what happens is that there are events that happen in our daily lives, negative events, and they don't all have to be major. It could be a minor event. You could spill coffee on yourself, okay? But if you go up in a home where, excuse me, your mother was always saying how clumsy you are, and you're so awkward, and you know what, you walk funny, whatever, spilling coffee on you, that's going to trigger something in the past for this kid. And the problem is that the kid, he correlates events from the present and the past, but they don't match up. See, what happens is, like, let's say you spill the coffee, and he goes into his storage unit of all this pain that's sitting there. And he goes and he looks for the pain, the most intense pain he can feel that matches up with what he thinks just happened. So therefore, maybe you're, out with your mom and you're around all your friends and other mothers, and, you're about 11 or so, and you trip, and your mother says, "Oh, you're such a klutz," in front of everybody. And you feel so embarrassed. And now your friends are always calling you, "Hey, klutzy, klutzy," and that he's going there. Now, all you did was spill a cup of coffee. Wasn't that big a deal? But he looks at it in very different. And therefore, now he only wants one thing, and one thing alone. He wants comfort. He's looking for comfort because he doesn't want to sit with that emotional distress. And somewhere along the way, he discovered that sex is a wonderful form of comfort. So therefore, he has you running. He has you running off to just do what he needs to do to get his comfort. So with this process, what we do is we identify core emotional triggers. What are those triggers that are in that warehouse that you may not be aware of? So this way, when they occur, you are now one step ahead of your addiction. The other thing, and therefore then when we identify those triggers, and you're probably wondering, how do you identify those? Well, what I did was I came up with 9 different kids, and here's one, the emotionally avoidant child. And in it talks about how each child, what happened that they became that way. What was the environment they were raised in? And usually there's more than one environment. There's a few different things that could get them there. And then it gives you an idea of, okay, now as an adult, what are some of the things, the way they will be acting out in order to, again, meet the kid's ability to be able to stay comfortable with things. And so we look for, with each child, what are the core emotional triggers that they have. So for example, as I said, there's 9 kids that I've identified throughout my work. And actually, somebody asked me the other day, they said, do you think there's more than 9? I said, there may be more than 9. But right now, the 9 I've come up with is the bored child, unnoticed child, unaffirmed, emotionally voided, the need for control child, the entitled child, the inferior weak kid, the stressed child, and the sexually stimulated and or abused child. So if you were to look at the weak or inferior child, some of those core emotional triggers, and it then happens where you start to feel, I'm useless, or I'm powerless, or I'm insignificant, or I'm a fraud. There's just a few of those. That's going to activate your kid. He's going to start going into a storage unit. He's going to find something bigger. And then he's going to be screaming back there, and he's going to want comfort. And before you know it, you're off and running. So by being aware of all these things through mindfulness, you now can be able to cut him off before he gets there. You're going to sit with him, sit with the pain that he feels, sit with some of those emotions. And then you understand, oh, you know what? It doesn't kill me. I don't die if I sit with my bad emotion, which, you know, I think most of us feel like we would. You know, we'll be okay. There's a tomorrow. But and in fact, that's when we grow. We grow when we sit with emotional pain. We don't grow when we're sitting around happy and, you know, just nothing going on in our world. We're good. The growth comes through challenges. And that's what builds perseverance for us. And that's what this whole process is about. It's a process about empowering people. I'm giving the power back to you. We're going to take it away from the kid. And basically what I've done is I've externalized our addiction. And what it also does, which is an amazing thing that I've seen, it helped because, again, many people who come in here, they have very low emotional IQs. It helps them to learn how to nurture. It helps them learn how they can be, you know, take somebody and say, hey, I can help soothe you. And in turn, they're learning to soothe themselves. So that gives you kind of a summary of what it's all about.
Yeah, check out the two previous webinars too, because it really is useful. And, you know, and I think it's so helpful to be able to go, oh, that's, you know, that's that kid. That kid is coming up understandably. And, you know, here's what I can do to soothe that kid so I'm not feeling that, you know, just the, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, or right, triggered. So I think it's super helpful. I really appreciate it too that you talked about, you know, you have more than one kid. You have probably a kid that's a little more dominant, but you can have more than one kid. So, you know, you know, those combinations of things going, that's.
Actually, people have anywhere between 3 and 5. To your point, you know, there's usually 1 or 2 that are the more dominant ones. So therefore you'll find 2 or 3 triggers with them. And with the other kids, you may find 1. You know, I had a new client come in about a week ago, and he was reading through it, and he got it was really funny because he sat there and he was like, oh my gosh, he goes, I realize now that my sex addiction has everything to do with the way I don't feel and about my emotions and lack of my emotions.
Exactly.
Yes, that's it. But it was like a light bulb went off.
Yeah.
And it's like, he goes, I thought I was just a pervert. I go, yeah, that's what, you know, we think about ourselves at times. Yeah. That and along with other things. But no, that's what it's about. And again, I go back to, and we'll maybe do a show about this later on, but more in depth. I really go back to the very early years of child development, where we are supposed to be taught how to learn to self-soothe ourselves. You know, when something happens, and whether it's we just fall down and get our knee or whatever, or somebody takes a toy from us, and there are some parents who are like, you know what, I don't have time, move away, or it's not a big deal, or get over it, or stop crying. We're not taught how to soothe. So therefore, we have to figure it out on our own. And so what we do is we'll run off to soothe ourselves with something that distracts us. And in most cases, like, all right, let me go play with my toys, or let me go sit in front of a TV. And now, of course, kids at a very young age are sitting in front of their iPads, you know, and they're zoning out. So I don't have to feel the hurt that I went through. And I believe a lot of it occurs back then. And it's called arrested emotional development. We just aren't trained to be in tune with what our pain is and how to soothe it. And so therefore, we're going to escape. And as you pointed out before, Tammy, in the past, that some people don't use sex to escape. They use many other things. I met somebody who uses exercise to escape. They're in the gym 3 times a day for an hour and a half each time.
That's compulsive. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I always tell people too, you know, I mean, and partners, it's so hard for them to hear, but you know, sex addiction is not about sex. It's about escape. It's like alcohol isn't about how great that drink tastes. It's really
Yes.
about, it's going to numb me out. It's going to let me escape. You know, porn is fantasy, like anything that keeps me away from those uncomfortable feelings, you know,
Hmm.
that's what addiction, whatever form it takes is. So, but
Right. And
yeah.
you're right. That is hard for the partner to understand because it's
So
like,
personal. The betrayal is so hurtful and personal. So yeah.
yes, it is.
And it's not a, and I always say it's not an excuse, it's a reason. So
It is.
it's not justifying anything. It's not giving somebody a free pass. It's like they
Nope.
need to attend to, you know, to the addiction. You talked about, you know, like parents not, you know, being there or get over it or whatever, you know, but so I think kids learn, particularly if it isn't a safe environment, if they aren't going to get supported, you know, at that young age, you know, they learn what ends up being maladaptive coping skills. So compartmentalizing and numbing out, dissociating, you know, that's my safe place. I can go to, you know, go within myself.
Right.
And, you know, because the world is not safe, there isn't someone there to take care of me. And so, and it works in that moment, but then it ends up being the thing that ends up biting you later, you know,
Right.
because now you're not connected in a healthy way to your wife or husband, you know? So
Right.
yeah, challenging.
Because you learn to run away. And
Yeah.
that's why I tell my clients, I go, we are runners. And I'll tell you the other thing that it is too, it leads to emotional immaturity. We just are not emotionally mature. And I have to tell you, every client I've mentioned that to you, not one client has ever pushed back. They've all said, yep, you're right, you're right. You know who pushes back on me with that? My peers.
Oh, that's
Other
funny.
other counselors will say, "Oh, you can't talk to people and tell them that they're emotionally immature." And it's like I'm just telling them the facts. I went through it, and I knew I was too. And
Well, we
it
talk
is
about that at the tables. It's like whatever age you start, you know, drinking, for example, you know, when you start doing that, you stopped growing up. So,
right.
you know,
You did.
most of the people that hit a meeting are, you know, 11, you know.
Right. And that's why part of our growth is to be able to become more mature. And in becoming more mature, oh, you're going to make more rational decisions. Oh, I'm going to sacrifice a little bit. Oh, I'm going to learn to sit with emotional pain and discomfort. I'm going to look more outward versus inward. Not going to be so focused on what I want, need, or desire. I'm going to look outward to what other people do. Goes totally against what an addict does.
But
Goes
that's how
totally
you build empathy because you're starting to pay attention to what other people are doing and saying
exactly,
and feeling. So,
exactly, and that's exactly what it is. So again, it becomes more along the line. The thing about the going deeper concept is not just ridding ourselves of the addictive behavior. It's about a total transformation of how we do actually wind up growing up to become the people that we always wanted to become and become that good, wife, mother, father, husband, somebody who is safe, somebody who's dependable. That's what this is all about.
I can't wait.
I know it's people can pre-order right now on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, a book, almost any kind of book outlet out there, retail outlet online. They can order, and it will be on February 13th. And as somebody said to me, they said, "Oh, what a wonderful Valentine's Day gift."
I'm sure there's some people that pick that up for their loved ones. So,
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but I will tell you, let me tell you this too, though, what's really interesting is, like I told you, my wife, she works with people who've been betrayed. And, people coming in the office, they're seeing the book, they're seeing the stuff that's out there. And the people who've been betrayed are grabbing the book also. And it is good for them because what you do is from here, this is how you get empathy. You sit here and you say, oh my gosh, look at the brokenness of my partner. I didn't realize that this is what really goes on. And of course, you also find some of your own brokenness.
I was going to say, but I think it also gives you tools to support yourself and go, that's tapping into the, this, inner child of mine, and how can I nurture that child,
Right.
in the
Yeah.
moment.
The other big comment I'm hearing from a lot of people is, you know what, you could take off the, sexual addiction. How does my inner child impact your blank?
I
And put that in there.
I was one of them saying that. So yeah,
Yes.
100%
Yes, you are.
yeah.
And it is true. It is definitely true. And that's why I say I got to start thinking about what I'm going to do next.
In your
But I think, yeah, my free time. Yeah, I think we'll wait for this one to come out first, and
I agree.
we'll go from there. So,
Well, thank you. This is always enlightening and interesting information. So appreciate you being here. We'll see you the third week of February. So
yes, that's when the book will be out by that
yeah, I
time.
was gonna say the book will have launched by then. It'll be interesting to see what we're hearing about it. So
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you,
thanks
folks, for
everyone.
who've been here and listened, and I'll see you next time, Tammy.
Bye bye.